you would stand at this time for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you. At this time, we're going to take, we're not going to do nominations first. We're going to hear from the community with citizens' input. And I will start with Ms. Jane Spear. You come to the mic. You have 3 minutes with the board.
Thank you very much to the board, to the chair, and to all the executive staff present. My name is Jane Spear, and I'm here representing myself. As you know, I've been to a lot of school board meetings, almost everyone in the last 2 years. In addition to that, I have been executive director of several not-for-profits. I've been involved in hiring, and I want to talk a little bit about the process today that I just want to give you my opinion on how to move forward. We're all thinking about the children and the stability. I think we need to look for stability longer than next year. And I think when you appoint an acting superintendent, it is my hope that that acting superintendent will not be eligible to file for the superintendent's job, and I'll tell you why. If people who want to file for this position, for the position of superintendent of schools, if they know or think that the acting superintendent is the shoo-in, we're going to cut a lot of very effective, qualified, some overqualified people from that because they just don't want to have to go through it if they think it's just for naught. So I encourage you, as you select your acting superintendent, that you make a condition that acting will not be applying for the full-time superintendent's job. And I think that helps the longevity of stability. Anyway, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Spear. Tracy Amber Bride. And then Brandy Oldman will be next.
Good evening. My name is Tracy. I'm a parent and a former teacher. And I just wanted to come and put my thoughts towards hiring a new superintendent. I agree very much with Ms. Spear that anybody in the interim role, acting role, should not be a candidate further to keep up looks. I also would very much encourage following our school board protocol that will allow for our deputy SI to fill in as acting as we do a national search, which for those of us, probably everyone in this room, have heard that would be happening for, 3 years, maybe longer. And the last thing, it was really curious to me that the voting members of the board to release Mr. Andrew had 2 of the 3 had just given meets expectations. So I find it curious that he was taken off by those folks. And it has a feel of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's replacement 6 weeks before the next president was going to be put in, and I don't like that feeling. That's it.
All right, thank you. Randy Oldman.
Good afternoon, board chair and everybody. Thanks for having me. I would like to echo what those ladies said. What was that? I'd like to echo what those ladies said, and if we can just have our deputy superintendent fill the role, because she's quite capable of doing that, maybe with a little monetary incentive to do well. Just keep her without a contract, but as the deputy. She, as I understand it, she is capable of fulfilling that role while we do a nationwide search. The fact that we've had something like 7 or 8 superintendents in 10 years isn't great. And I'd like to apologize for Shane, because I called in the other meeting and I just said some stuff that was probably not great. But I do think that it is imperative that we do not make the deputy superintendent a long-term superintendent, that we do that full nationwide search and do what's best for the kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Fu. Then I'll have Jessica Exits. Exits will be next.
Just thank you for everyone who's already made your comments. I'm just really here to say that I'm really disappointed in the process that was shown last weekend, or the lack thereof, how quickly this decision was made without any public input or the ability for people to come and give their input. When we think about why we're here for public service. We're here to serve people. We're here to show responsible governance. And in my opinion, what we saw last week was not responsible governance. And so I just really do want to say to people that I do feel there are brighter days ahead. I do feel like we can get to a point to where we have a respected school board, to where people truly do feel like our public school system is looking out for them. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands that this is why we're here. We all choose to do this. We all choose to run for office. We choose to go after these higher profile jobs. So any criticism that comes our way is something that we knowingly take on, and we should do so with grace and humility. Thank you.
Jessica Exit. You have 3 minutes with the board. State your name for the record.
I do not have a high-profile job, but I'm here nonetheless. School board members, I would like to take a minute to talk about the search for a new superintendent. One thing is hello?
Yeah, you're there. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, I'm losing track. As a parent of 3 in Alachua County, I feel the next candidate for superintendent has a unique opportunity to focus on issues that have been dismissed or disregarded for some time, specifically the needs of our special education community and students. I respectfully request that during the hiring search for our new superintendent, special emphasis be placed in their previous experience in special needs education, not just from a pedagogical sense, but from a practical application of services for parents, teachers, students, and administrators. And so that would be looking at the longer term. In the shorter term, I agree that it shouldn't be right now deciding longer term, because you can't figure all this out so quickly. Most importantly, I believe that the new superintendent and the school board needs to commit themselves to more transparent and judicial use of county resources for the special needs community. While budgets can be found online with ease, understanding how the budgets work in common sense terms is almost impossible. Furthermore, an improved system of communication between the school board of Alachua County and the Department of Education is a must, as many special needs issues often fall into the cracks between state and county resources and are never resolved. And this is coming from someone who went to school for it before they had a child with it. Locally, I feel the new superintendent needs to publicly define the role of they want special education to play in our schools throughout the county. While accommodations are made for individuals based on their IEPs, I feel the new superintendent should take a top-down approach to overhauling our special needs education community in Alachua County. Not only asking what can we do, but what haven't we done? As a parent of a severely disabled child, instead of having confidence in our school board meetings and exceeding the needs of our special needs students, it often feels we're fighting an exhausting uphill battle to achieve the most basic services. To recap, I would like greater transparency on budgeting, improved communication with parents and teachers, more common sense language in.
Thank you, Ms. Hicks. Thank you so much. Taylor Gifflin, then Dijon Kane.
Evening, board members. My name is Taylor Gilfillan, former district employee and current DAC member. Echoing some comments shared earlier, don't think anyone was satisfied with the level of community input that went into last week's decision. Not going to spend much time there. I think my ask and my thought for y'all is, I hope this board now can model in this process you're getting ready to go through, the community engagement process that you hope to have during this national search that you're maybe planning on doing. I think we also heard back in 2022 on the campaign trail that we were going to be having a national superintendent search. That didn't happen. Would just be curious to know what's going to be different this time, if that is a decision that the board or future board wants to make. I'd like to offer a few questions that I'd like for the board to grapple with and maybe think about as they go through this process. I think one is there are 26 days until the superintendent's contract terminates on November 15th. What process will this board use to review, consider, and vet each nominee? Before you all vote to appoint another superintendent, it might behoove and benefit the public and potentially the next superintendent for you to explain your vote, yes or no, on why you decided to terminate the previous superintendent. And then if you are all set on a new superintendent for the next 6 to 7 months, what priorities, goals, and expectations will you set to ensure a smooth transition for the next leader? I have a couple more thoughts, but I'll leave it there. You're swapping out leaders. We still need stability. How will this board structure and set that person up for success if that's the direction you're going to go? Thank you.
Dijon Kane. And then Ann Rush.
Good afternoon. First of all, thank you for your hard work. I don't come to these meetings, but last week I had to come to this meeting after I saw and heard what happened. Shane Andrews, let me just talk about this man, because I can talk about him. I'm from the district. I grew up here. The man is amazing. He has brought change in this community, whether we want to see it or not. Whether we want to agree on it, it's your choice. But he has done a wonderful job. Diane McGraw, she has done a wonderful job. I've never met anyone that's so focused and really cares about the kids. I can talk about it because I've saw it in action. And this district just repeatedly continues to let people that are homegrown from this community go. Our staff, our students, and our teachers have to feel comfortable with the leader. And they did with Shane Andrews. Everybody's going to have a problem, but we're all going to have problems. Get over it and let's move on. It is unacceptable that we let such a stallion leader leave our community. The Bible tells us that we reap what we sow. And I'm afraid that this county is going to reap what they have sown. We've sown bad seeds, and we're going to reap bad seeds. We're sown good seeds, and we'll get good ones. But we cannot continue to allow good people to walk out of here. If you got a personal problem with them, so what? Leave it home. Handle your business. Hold your head up and do your job. But I am so saddened by this community that such a great man, such a man that I've seen work, and so many people trust him. It's not about one opinion, but it's about the community. It's about our children, and we cannot forget that. And once you forget that, maybe you should find another job. But that gentleman, I'm proud of him. I love the work that he's done. He's going to continue to do great work here. But we got to do some soul searching in this community. Why are we messing with somebody from here that really loves this community? And we're going to bring somebody in that's going to tear up the district. We've seen it before, and it's going to happen again. So let's be careful on this next pick. We need somebody from this community. I mean that. We need somebody from home because they know what we need. Let us not make a mistake. Let us not be weary in well-doing. But we should appreciate that man because he's done a lot. And remember, when he came to the school board, it was a mess. And you can't clean up a mess overnight. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy gonna come in the morning. And somewhere along the point, they're gonna get it that it's not about us, it's about our children. Thank you so much for your time. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. King. Ian Rush.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ann Rush for the record. I am here to request that the board consider leaving an acting superintendent in place instead of moving forward with the appointment of a superintendent, whether on an air quotes interim basis or a full basis. Legally, there is either an acting superintendent or a superintendent, and it just differentiates the level of contract that they have. At a time when our district is already having financial difficulties, we don't need to be paying additional severance to another person who's only going to be with us a temporary period of time. We have the ability to have an acting superintendent. We have many capable employees who are part of district staff already who can serve in the acting superintendent position. I may not agree with several of them and have personal problems with the behavior of several of them, but they are better than continuing to disturb the finances of our district at a time when we need to be managing it very carefully. Additionally, the timing of this vote is done in a very interesting manner. We have a change in the board membership coming up. Our board has repeatedly, over numerous meetings, stressed that we need to have solidarity, and yet we're going to have a vote for who could potentially be the superintendent for a long period of time done when we have somebody coming in who will potentially be with them for 4 years or more, but not allowing them the timing of it to select that person, and instead allowing the timing to allow someone who's going to have a matter of days to select who that person will be. We have a solution. We need to allow someone to function as an acting superintendent, and when we have a newly constituted board, have that person select who the real superintendent will be. It'll save the district money. It will support solidarity of the board. I beg the board to consider taking that action. Thank you.
Thank you. Leah Cohen.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name's Leah Cohen, and I'm a parent of an elementary school student here in Alachua County, as well as a local organizer with Florida for All. We know that our school system has been failing families and students, and that the harm that that has caused has been disproportionately distributed. Given the fact that we have not had the resources to effectively communicate with families and the community and to address these disparities, it would be irresponsible at this time to spend the resources and energy on installing someone new as an interim, particularly when we have a deputy superintendent who can play that role. In addition, it makes no sense to do this before the new board member has been placed on the board, given the fact that they, as a new board, will be responsible for overseeing the eventually hired superintendent, which needs to be done through an extensive, thorough, and intentional process. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nathan, the phone call.
Caller, please state your name. You have 3 minutes with the board.
Hi, yes, my name is Tina Days, and I just want to say I want to give a special praise to Superintendent Andrew. You know what you've done. We know what you've done in the community. Some people, this is all about likes and clicks. It's not about you doing your job. If you don't toe the line for some of these people, they want to get rid of you. That's what it's all about. We all know that, and Chairperson McGraw, you know you carry yourself with this the same thing. You didn't toe the line where some people felt like you should have, and they want to get rid of you. That's all to it. So the next interim, admin, whoever come in, you got to be careful yourself. If you don't toe the line to what these people want you to do, they're going to get rid of you too. And also, what job or what employee will write negative comments about their co-workers before they even get put on the board? I saw that article by Mr. View on the Alachua Chronicle. That's the problem. That's the problem of why Superintendent Andrew wants to can't work. You have a member of the school board, not even on the school board, already negative about them co-workers. You have co-workers on the diocese campaign against their fellow co-workers on Facebook. How y'all supposed to work together? How they supposed to be a collegial atmosphere on the board? First, the board need to get themselves together. Without a board that is accountable, that could get along with each other, what good is to have any superintendent to come? Because I'm telling you, if I was a superintendent at the superintendent and I have members arguing against each other, working against each other in the community, downgrade each other community, talking behind each other in the back, how can you work? And then you have some members on the board, no, you want to meet with the superintendent. How can this board be successful with this atmosphere like this? Y'all need to get together first. Then the superintendent can get the act together. Then the community can buy in. We see what's happening on the board. We see it on Facebook every single day. Y'all get yourself together before anything positive can happen in this community. Thank you.
Caller, please state your name. You have 3 minutes with the board.
Hello, my name is Allison Duarte. I'm calling because I was a little disappointed at the way Mr. Andrews' termination was handled at the last board meeting. I think it was abrupt, and I think that he could have continued in his position while we did a nationwide search. So I don't feel like this approach will benefit the children and the citizens of Alachua County to terminate him like this and hire an interim superintendent. I feel like it is fiscally irresponsible to contract a temporary person for this position. And I feel like a nationwide search is what we need, and this is how we get the best candidates for the job. And a national search doesn't mean that we cannot have good local candidates be considered. So I feel like what we're doing right here isn't beneficial for any of the children or the citizens, and we should consider pausing, allowing the deputy superintendent to take over now that this, I guess, step has been taken, and then immediately starting a national search. So, thank you.
That's it. All right, Julian Kinsey, and then Travis Adair.
Good evening, board members. I'm here today to address the recent decision to terminate my name is Julian Kinsey. I'm here today to address the recent decision to terminate the contract of Superintendent Andrew. I believe that this decision was both a violation of due process and a clear act of misfeasance. First, let us consider the issue of due process. Superintendent Andrew was not given adequate notice of the termination proceedings, nor an opportunity to defend himself. This fundamental right, guaranteed by the 14th Amendment, was blatantly disregarded. The abrupt nature of the proceedings and the limited discussion prior to the vote suggests that the superintendent was not given a fair opportunity to present his case. Moreover, the decision to terminate the superintendent was arbitrary, capricious, and motivated by bad faith. The sudden change in the board's stance from promoting and evaluating the superintendent positively to terminating his contract without clear justification raises serious concerns. The timing of the termination, just days before a new board member is sworn in, further supports the conclusion that this decision was politically motivated and aimed at preempting the incoming member's potential influence. The rushed nature of the proceedings and the lack of transparency also indicate a violation of procedural requirements and established practices. This suggests that the board acted improperly in terminating the superintendent's contract. In conclusion, I urge the board to reconsider this decision. The termination of Superintendent Andrew was a clear violation of due process and a blatant act of misfeasance. It is essential that the board act fairly, transparently, and in the best interest of the students in our community. I implore you to rectify this wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Travis Adair.
Hello, my name is Travis Adair. I'm a resident out in Newberry. I'm going to try to be brief because I think you just did a great job of explaining a lot of some of my issues, that this was very quick and seemingly politically motivated. So realistically, if I'm not super familiar with the procedures, but if it's not possible to undo what was done, we have to look forward. So I think the reasonable expectations that we as taxpayers and citizens of this county have are some of the following. First off, this search for an interim superintendent is entirely unnecessary. Part of the deputy superintendent's duties are to be the superintendent if they are no longer able or available to do so. We already have one. Look for a temporary solution is unnecessary. Secondly, I do believe that we should begin a nationwide search for a superintendent immediately. And the process should be as transparent as possible so that we citizens and taxpayers have at least knowledge and maybe even say in what that decision is. And speaking of the voice and will of the people, the timing of this does seem a little suspect, and that one of the people that voted to fire the superintendent is one, on their way out, and two, spent a good 5 minutes ranting about how getting rid of him would have been a bad idea. I feel like it was done in a way, and the timing to bring in someone new right now on a temporary contract is going around the voice of the people when we have a new member coming in just a couple weeks. It seems unnecessarily rushed. Well, at least unnecessary if you were looking at it just purely at the what is good for kids and also the teachers and supporting staff of these schools. It may be politically expedient for some people. Thank you.
Thank you. Evelyn Fox.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Evelyn Fox here, and I have a question to put before you. Since Shane Andrews' contract would expire on next month, November, is it possible for we to allow him to be the interim superintendent until we could tell you all could go forward with the search? Can he possibly be the interim? He's in the position and his contract is going to end next month. I would urge you all to please allow him to be the interim superintendent until the national search is done. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's all I have. Oh, you got two calls. Go ahead.
Caller, please state your name. You have 3 minutes with the board.
Yes, thank you. My name is Armando Grundy Gomez, and I just wanted to say I don't know what the reasoning behind a lot of what happened last week, but we can't talk about what happened last week. We can only move forward. So the decision was made, but I find it interesting is that we look at the evaluations, and a lot of the evaluations those that gave the superintendent glowing or acceptable recommendations or glaring recommendations at the time were the ones that discarded them. And so we had callers last week were saying that it was only 2 other members that I guess did not give the same recommendations as the 3 that got discarded the superintendent. So it's a paradigm that we have on the board right now. And so much is it doesn't matter who the leader is that you all select or have already chosen to select, whether it's behind closed doors or not behind closed doors, or it's kind of like playing Russian roulette. It doesn't matter until you all decide to become a functional board. And I don't think it's going to matter whether it's 3 or 2. It shouldn't have to be 3-2 votes, because anytime it's a 3-2 vote, the children still lose. But I do appreciate some of the comments, even of some of the board members that voted to get rid of the superintendent. One of the school board members last week was making very salient points about some of the decision making, how we're spending money, how we're wasting money. And there's a lot of good comments that come from good leaders and even when we don't agree with them. And it's always important to look at what do we desire. And so my question to you all, and to that school board member that was talking about how we spend money, is what is it that you're exactly looking for in your leader? What exactly is it you're looking for when you imagine or want to reimagine how you want the school district to function or not? I highly doubt any of you up there want to continue in mediocrity. I highly doubt any of you want to continue spending money and waste it. I highly doubt any of you want to continue seeing failing schools. I highly doubt any of you, or at least I hope none of you, want to continue to say, hey, we're going to wait till we want the state to take over. I highly doubt any of you want to go below the threshold of 5%, and I at least hope not. There's some nefarious point to this that I just want to make a point because I can't get my way. And certainly we don't also have time, nor none of the people up there have the capacity to listen to long, drawn-out speeches of people just wanting to say something because they're upset and they want to talk about people getting along, but then your decisions don't talk about getting along. So I guess to each and every one of you, I'm asking an actual question to you. What is it that you really desire and really want? Because if it's a leader that you want, then, okay, what do you want out of that said leader in? Because if it's going to be a 3-2 decision, are we just going to say, oh, because we had an election, we don't like that?
Thank you for
Time,
your
you can
comment.
disconnect the call. Who you have next?
Caller, please state your name. You have 3 minutes with the board.
Yes, my name is Susan Kahn, and I just want to let it be known, as some of the other constituents have stated, this entire thing looks suspect, and it's sad that, it was stated that by the chairperson that I'm 55 and then someone else who sits to the right of her is older than her, but you don't act your ages. Everyone knows that you were just simply trying to save the superintendent's salary. We see through that. And it's a shame that you sit there and talk about it's for the children when your actions say otherwise. This is ridiculous. And the superintendent should remain employed until the search is over. He needs to earn his money, such as it is. It's awful that you can't ever get anything done, as Ms. Abbott has stated, because there's always one in particular who's the chairperson combating and discrediting everything anyone says that she doesn't like. And for the public needs to understand, there were 3 board members who placed the motion to terminate the superintendent's contract.
All right. Anyone else? You didn't have to cut it. You didn't have to cut it. She didn't say my name, though. She didn't say the name.
Caller, you have 3 minutes with the board. Please state your name.
Good evening, Board. I find it interesting that so many people find it interesting as to what's happened. These are the same people who have constantly been badgering and wanting the current superintendent, Andrew, gone. They couldn't wait. That's a big part of why a person ran for the school board, was so that they could get rid of Superintendent Andrew. But now, all of a sudden, these same people suddenly want him to stay. You don't find that interesting? None of these people calling in didn't care when the same thing was done to Karen Clark, and Carly Simon was brought in so quickly. And when Carly Simon was let go in her big severance package, nobody cared about the school district finances back then, but now all of a sudden we're caring about things that we didn't care back then. The back and forth is ridiculous, and it really needs to stop. It really does need to stop. People see through you. People have watched your board meetings. People have seen your comments, which you sit there and you make in closed Facebook groups about the superintendent and about others. You should be celebrating. You should be giddy with excitement that the hard work has already been done for you and you're not being accused of firing superintendent. Honestly, you should thank your other 3 board members.
That's all the calls.
That's all the calls. We're going to take a 5-minute recess just for a minute. We're going to take a 5-minute. At this time, I don't have any more citizens' input. If you get her back on the phone, we will allow her to finish her comments. At this time, we're bringing it back to the board. And it's, okay, Mr. Delaney, you have anything you need to say? Okay, all right. So we're back, and we're now at nominations, and then we can have discussion. If anybody, Dr. Rockwell, I see your light first.
So I actually did not bring names forward because I think that less than 1 week was not adequate time to do this. And I also think that we have in board policy where our deputy superintendent can step in as acting superintendent. We've heard from several citizens that they want to have more time, more transparency, more input. I agree with that. I honestly would have preferred, as Ms. Fox stated, to have Mr. Andrews stay in place. I don't know how or if that can be changed. I would have preferred to keep him in place while we did a search, because one of the things that we do as board members is listen to the community, and the community has talked many times about stability. And, you know, I want to say once again, I have been critical of Mr. Andrews' job performance. I have concerns about his ability to manage large-scale projects, to get adequate community input for his ideas and plans, and to manage our budget. Those are job performance issues. I have never questioned his integrity or his commitment to the children or to this district. I have never questioned his previous performance as a district or school administrator, because I know that he was successful in both of those roles. But being a superintendent is an incredibly challenging job. It requires a skill set that simply being a successful principal or even district administrator doesn't necessarily prepare a person for. I would never claim that I have that skill set. I know I don't. It is a ridiculously challenging job, and that is why it is so important that we break the cycle of appointing interim superintendents and making them permanent without a search. We are setting people up for failure when we do that. And I didn't say all of the things that I needed to say last week on Tuesday because I was quite frankly blindsided and shocked. I was shocked at the implication that Mr. Andrew, who is, again, dedicated to children and dedicated to this district, would ever allow criticism of his job performance to impact his dedication to children. I was shocked that there was an implication that he would no longer want to do his job or do his job with the same integrity that he has, simply because 3 board members were critical of his job performance. That was very shocking to me. That is not something I believe to be true about him. I believe that his care for the students, for the families, for Alachua County wouldn't have allowed that. Do I believe that he had all of the skill set necessary to be a long-term successful superintendent and manage our $600 million budget? No. But that is a far cry from saying that he would abandon the children and the community and this district simply because I or any other board member was critical of his performance. And yeah, 2 different things. So now, but that's done. That's done. That's in the past, unfortunately. Again, it would have been much better for the children of this district to keep the stability of Mr. Andrew in place while we conducted a search. Given that that is not possible now, I do not think we should move forward with appointing an interim superintendent at this time. Not only is it unnecessary because Dr. Atria is fully capable of serving as acting superintendent, but as many commenters pointed out, it is a bad look timing-wise. We have a new board member who will be joining this board 2 business days after Mr. Andrews' contract ends. And that's just a really, really bad look. I would also suggest, I heard Ms. Spear comment about the hiring process, and when you do a search, it can be challenging to get quality applicants if there's an internal candidate. And so I would suggest that if we were to go forward with appointing an interim, which may be better for Dr. Atria if she has interest in applying, that's a conversation I think should be for a later date. But if we were to go forward with appointing an interim, the Florida School Board Association does maintain a list of retired superintendents who are willing to step in to districts and keep things stable while those districts conduct searches. These are individuals who have no interest in going back to being a full-time, long-term superintendent. They're willing to serve for 3 to 6 months. And I think that if we do decide an interim is necessary, which at this time I don't think it is, but if the board going forward decides that, I really think that we should speak to FSBA and see if they can get us somebody who would be able to come in with experience as a superintendent and keep things steady while we conduct a search so that there is no appearance. Again, I'm not saying we don't have excellent internal applicants, but we are setting superintendents up for failure if we give the appearance of hiring friends, of backroom deals, of having made the decision before conducting the transparent search with the community involved. We cannot do that again. We've done it twice. It has not worked out well. If we're going to do a search, we need to do that search without any appearance of bias toward an internal candidate. Thank you.
Ms. Surton. Thank you, Madam Chair. So Dr. Rockwell, you said a couple of things that resonate with me and that were on my mind. I didn't speak a lot last Tuesday either, but I do want to say that I agree with the majority of what you said tonight, and as far as a path forward. The timing of it does bother me. It puts me in a place of where I was back in 2020, and I don't want to repeat that. When I ran and I decided to seek election in 2018, there were 3 tenets that I ran upon, and I stand on this. I wanted to work to provide equitable educational opportunities to students because the disparity, and one of our citizens spoke about that. The district does not serve all students well. I wanted to be accountable to our community. Accountability was really big, financial transparency and community engagement. In 18, we kind of turned the curve with some, had some challenges, and we entered into COVID, and COVID prevented a lot of community engagement because it was a pandemic and we weren't able to have a lot of meetings and things of that nature in the public space. So in 2020, when, as a caller mentioned, Ms. Clark came and she was terminated abruptly there, and it did create a lot of chaos. And that's something, if there's one vote that I could take back, that would be one that I would take back, because I saw the upheaval that it created for our organization, and I don't want to be that way. So when on the 15th, when we voted, the vote was taken or the motion made to terminate Mr. Andrew, I was not for that. Like Dr. Rockwell, in my evaluation, it stated some things about the quality of the work and being able to do this. I feel that he was learning on the job, and this position is just too critical to have someone learning as they go. It's a large organization, a lot of moving parts, a lot of things issues that we needed to address, and we weren't. We didn't get to those things, and so nothing personal. It was just that I just didn't think he had the skill set to do, and my colleague, Dr. Rockwell, really did summarize that a lot better than me. And so to have him on and stay on till 11:15, and then the meeting, was said we would have this meeting tonight to bring names. I didn't bring any names because I too also want to stop and to consider, to be more deliberate before we move forward. We have a new member that's going to be joining us a few days later on that Tuesday, the 19th, I think it is. And I think in order to be transparent, in order to not get into this tussle, it seems like a power struggle in the sense of one person who was, like folks would think I got accused, people calling me saying, why did you vote to terminate him? And I'm like, I didn't vote to terminate him. And so I am actually was very, very perplexed. That was not a thing. And I really wanted to ask my colleagues if they could really help me with some clarity on that. But it's done now, and we won't relive that. But I do think tonight we should not appoint anyone. We should wait, as has been said by some citizens, by my colleague here. And I was going to mention the same thing, that in the deputy superintendent's job description that was created and voted on by a previous board, one of the goals of that is that position can step in and act in the absence of the superintendent. It is temporary. I think when the board is constituted, we can sit down and have a notice meeting and we can talk collectively about how we will go forward. If it is staying with an active to do a search, or if we would bring in an outside person with experience, as Dr. Rockwell said, that was kind of my thinking as well. Somebody who knows, who's had success, has worked and has had success in operating in large organizations, school districts. It's challenging, but I think you have to be able to manage a lot of different moving parts, a lot of people, and stability and all of that. I hear it is important, but if you're not moving and progressing along and just treading water, I don't think that's good. But for me, I think that the timing and all of it, I think it's best that my colleagues, and I hope that we would leave with agreement tonight that we don't make a decision on putting anybody in place, that we wait. I think there needs to be more deliberation, more discussion before we make such a move. And I heard when we didn't do the search last May, was we wanted continuity and stability, and we needed this, that, and other, and we didn't have the money. We've heard folks that have called in to say that, and we do have some challenges. We've got some challenges in our organization financially that we've got to deal with, and operationally as well as financial challenges. And I just don't think that the board in its current state should be making that decision. So I have a couple other things to say, but I'll stop for now.
All right, thank you. Dr. McNeely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Inasmuch that you ask for us to bring in, each of us, 2 names, I tried my best to bring in 2 names. Everyone from the inside as well as outside of the district turned us down, or turned me down, because I was the one making the request. I was very disappointed in many of the folk that I did contact because of their background experience, what I felt very strongly we needed at this point. But guess what? They had done their research or were knowledgeable about where we are in our district, what the 5 of us constantly do, and so therefore, I could not, as much as I persuaded and tried to convince that this would be a different era. We have new people, 1 new person joining us, and there would be some direction changes. However, all of the persons said no. The reason that I did not want to go with Dr. Atria is because of her stability and where she leads this district anyway. We need her in her current position, and I felt that one of the individuals who I had recommended would be able to collaborate with her, and she would be the undergirding person for that individual. I did call the Florida School Board Association. I spoke directly with Andrea Massini, and she does have some names for us. For, as you all are now calling, acting superintendent. In my years on this board, and this may be new, I heard some people say it should never be interim, but that is what we were told all of the time. Here is what the Florida School Board Association, and Mrs. Surton, correct me, I always thought she was the ED. She might be the chief, but I know she's in charge of the Florida School Board Association. Am I saying that correct?
She's the chief executive officer.
Executive officer, thank you. And so the only way that these 4 strong candidates would even consider coming and working with us, the 5 of us, and the staff, until the search, national search, was completed, that they would have a, I don't want to say strict, but a contract that would put them in the place of acting or interim and not be susceptible to losing their position with a vote, whether it's 3-2 or whatever. The other thing she said, even if we do the national search, no one is going to want to come in with a 3-2 vote, period. We talked at length today about the voting, the reasoning, some of the reasoning, or whatever. 2 people tonight recommended holding on to the current superintendent. I spoke to him at length last week, asking him to reconsider now that he was terminated by me and 2 other board members. I was given personal reasons as to why that would probably not be possible. With that, I don't know if you want me to give you all of the names, Chairman McGraw, but I felt it was no need because each and every person said no. And personally, Chairman McGraw and colleagues, I truly believe as we embark on the national search, unless we do some things differently, it is going to be the same way as people saying no for the interim. They would say no for the permanent. It's something for us to consider and to think about. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Abbott.
As I have the utmost respect for Mr. Andrew, and I think he is well loved by the community. He's a good man. He's very popular. I like him personally. And so making that move to terminate him last week was uncomfortable for me doing that. But in this position, we're supposed to be working for the kids. And so there were a couple of things that happened this year, decisions that were made by Superintendent Andrew that I didn't agree with. And I wasn't the only one. There were parents, there were many people who made a lot of decisions, including pulling kids out of school because of some of the decisions that the superintendent made. And while he was a wonderful teacher, he was a great principal, it takes a certain style of leadership to be able to run a district. And when you're in a district, and you've worked in this district for all of your career, you form relationships with people, and sometimes it's hard when you have a relationship with someone to treat them as an employee and make a decision about that person that is probably a good decision for the district that you're serving. And I think he struggled with that a lot. And for me, sitting here and doing and waiting, you know, having things go as status quo for the next 7 or 8 months with the superintendent, if he had stayed in place, that's 7 or 8 months that those kids are sitting in those schools on East Side making minimal learning gains. And there were things that were accomplished while he was here, but not at the rate that they should be happening. And the decision to break up that Williams magnet, which was functioning very, very well, and I don't even agree with the Williams magnet being there because it was only there to make Williams' score look better because kids struggle at that school. And so you did that, then all of those kids are pulled out and they go somewhere else. Or they go back to their home school, or they go to a private school. The year-round model that I pushed for, it can be successful. Kids can make great progress with that. And they deserve to make that progress because they've been sitting in these schools that have been making low school grades for years. But you have to do it a certain way. You can't just change the the schedule of when the kids are being served, 180 days, but we're just going to switch it around and have a couple of weeks break here and there. You have to do something different. And I spoke at length with Superintendent Andrew about this. You've got to go in, you've got to have a whole new feel, you got to get teachers pumped up, you got to make sure there are teachers in those schools that are certified, you got to add some time to the day so that you can get those kids caught up in reading and in math. But none of that was done. And so for me, I feel like that we need to move forward in a different direction with someone who has a vision, and look, do a search. But in the meantime, we need someone not from outside of the district, because someone comes in from the outside of the district, how do they understand the inner workings of what's going on? It doesn't make sense to bring someone in from outside of the district for the interim process. For hiring a full-time superintendent, it does. But for the interim process, you're bringing someone in for 6, 7, 8, 9 months, and they're on a learning curve trying to catch up and figure out what needs to be done, what needs to be improved, what's working. And so it needs to be someone who is familiar with all of that. And so I think that the person that I do have someone that I'm going to suggest, and the person that I'm going to suggest is someone who works in the district. And I have seen this person work in a lot of different capacities. And she's been a teacher, she's been principal at a couple of schools. She's now the director of FTE and state reporting, and that person is Kim Neal. And Kim Neal is a hard worker. She knows a lot about what's happening in the district, and I feel like she would be a good person to come in and be an interim superintendent until we can find someone who can come in for a more permanent basis. So that's mine.
All right. And so Dr. McNeely, she's given her one. If you still wanted to give, you didn't have anybody. Is that correct? I said if you still want to give your names, but I have a few comments as well. So I too spoke to Andrea Messina today, as well. And because all of the people inside of our school system said no. And I reflected on why they all said no. When I came back on this board, I went around, I made an effort to go to 30-some schools, I think every school except maybe 3 in the first 2 weeks of school. I talked to over 100 and something teachers. I spoke to so many families and administrators. Everybody wanted stability. Everybody wanted consistency. We did tell the community that we wanted a surge. But when I went around, people said that's not what they wanted. They wanted stability after COVID and a pandemic. Mr. Andrew has been present, been the superintendent for 2 years and 9, almost 10 months. So he made history compared to what we had. And so when you are criticized and humiliated on a regular basis, and I don't like, and I'm going to say it, I don't like the fact that people will insinuate that I did something wrong. I meet, and Ms. Green will tell you, I meet every other Thursday, twice a month, with the superintendent. And I would do the same if it was another superintendent, to discuss where we are in the needs. In the last meeting that we had, he indicated his professional career is what he's concerned about. And that's the concern that everybody else had that I called to ask if they wanted to come in and be superintendent until they have this surge. And until we learn to treat people with respect and learn to sit down with one another and be kind to one another, whether you agree or not, that is why you have 7 to 8 superintendents. And when you have people who criticize, he's not an elected superintendent, he is an appointed superintendent. And when you're criticized for no reason, and people can see that, people get tired and they're ready to go. And so I made my decision based on speaking to Mr. Andrew, who has done a marvelous job compared to 30 years. This system has been the same. Is it perfect? Did we agree on everything? Absolutely not. But I treated people with respect because that's what you're supposed to do. And because of our behaviors as board members and other people in this community, that is why Mr. Andrew decided he no longer wanted to serve in that capacity. And so I will be coming off November 18th, and I wish this board well on what we can do tonight. We were supposed to bring names. As you said, everybody I had was no. I did have 2 people to say yes, Dr. Rouse and Ms. Wanza Wakely. Those are the only 2 people that I had to say no, and that's what I have, and I wanted to share that tonight. Also, the other option was from the Florida School Board Association. They have people who are willing to come in and just be interim, just to stabilize things, and that's all they want. But as you said, Dr. McNeely, they want a contract that guarantees that they will only be here for interim to bring that continuity. And that's what I have. Dr. Rockwell, Ms. Abbott, I saw your light, and Dr. Rockwell.
And I was going to say, stability and consistency are great if your kid is at a school that's doing well. And so, I'm going to be done here in 2 years, and we're still going to have those schools. And I know people are sick and tired of hearing me harp on those schools, but if I don't do it, nobody else is doing it. We don't have tons of parents at these meetings asking why their kid is sitting in a classroom with a long-term sub, or someone who doesn't have a degree in elementary education, or, why their child can't read in 4th grade. And so so civility is great. And so we could put someone in there, a placeholder for either from the state or from, whoever you guys would want here for 6 or 7 months. But if they're going in there just being a placeholder, then nothing different's going to happen. Nothing is going to change. And when I spoke with Ms. Neal, the first question is, am I going to be a placeholder, or can I get in there and get things done? And that's what I want. I want someone to get in there and do something differently that has been done than what's been done in the past years. And so, 6 or 7 months doesn't sound like a long time, but our school year will be over, and there'll be kids who will still be sitting at some of these schools struggling. And it's not just the east side schools. It's certain schools in the west side that still can't, have that underserved population that they still can't get up to grade level. And so at some point, we're gonna make sure that we have certified teachers in those schools. We're gonna make some changes at those schools, because what they've been doing for 6, 7, 8 years, it's not working. And so we have to have somebody that's going to do things differently. And so, and the other thing I was going to say about Mr. Andrew and his character that I forgot, because I feel like Dr. Rockwell made it sound like I was just really attacking him, and I wasn't. But the thing is that when you're in a job and you are beaten down, it wears on you after a while. And I saw a perfect example of that, like at our workshop we had on the budget, when board members asked a really legitimate question like, so what are we going to do? What are we cutting back on in order to be able to meet that budget? And the answer that was given was an answer that I thought, there was no thought in that. Had you really thought about that? This is a huge amount of money. And so right there, I was just thinking, I'm not sure that, I think he pretty much understands that he's going to be out, before the year is up. And so why, he wasn't stressing over that stuff. And so it's important to me that when someone's in that job and they're responsible for the whole district, that they are stressing a little bit over things that are happening in the district.
Dr. Rockwell?
Ms. Abbott, those comments were not directed at you. You had not made any insinuation on Tuesday that he had.
I did. I mean, I
Oh.
tried to do it respectfully, but I think I did, to be honest. So I apologize to you, but I did. So.
Yeah, to me, it felt like I'm often criticized as a board member for being critical, but I'm being critical of job performance, and I felt like what happened Tuesday seemed to me much more personal, and I wouldn't appreciate my integrity being questioned. So that was my concern. But I have a new question now. I've heard 2 board members, one mentioned speaking to Mr. Andrew, and he had personal reasons for not wanting to do this job anymore. Another mentioned that he did not want to do the job anymore, and that leads me to a very big question, which is, if our superintendent does not want to do the job anymore, he can resign. He has to give the board 90 days notice, but he can resign. It is extremely concerning to me, even the appearance that board members may have terminated him in order to allow him to take a 20-week severance rather than him resigning. Even the appearance that might have happened is exceptionally concerning, very concerning.
And I have several concerns with people violating many apologies, which I have a whole bookload of, because it has continued over and over again. And so I am not going to sit here and allow people to act like you're going to attack my character, which is done on a regular basis, with insinuating. I have the right to meet with the superintendent, and I have the right to vote how I want to vote. That's each one of us that's on this board, and I want to make that very clear. I have the right to vote however I want to vote. Dr. McNeely, your light is on. Would you like to comment?
I didn't know if you had finished your comment.
I'm finished.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. One of the things that I failed to say when I had the mic earlier is that the superintendent and I have a very decent relationship. So many of the things that he has accomplished in his term of education and as an educator, I find myself, we're almost, as some people say, twinning, because I've done just as many things, maybe a little bit longer because of my age and where I sit in comparison to Mr. Andrew. But please understand, citizens, that in 2016, I just heard my colleague, Dr. Rockwell, say resignation should be an option. I went through that with Superintendent Owen Roberts. That is not what we should be asking for. I think that if he could get 5 colleagues, and I doubt that would happen, to encourage him to remain with us until the national search is over, then maybe the reconsideration would occur. But as long as we continue in the same way, in the same action, think about it. I would not want to continue, nor does he, until there would be change. And I know that I've said more than once, say what you need to say to him and his staff. Get it straight. But it's the way that we handle it. And whoever is going to be acting superintendent or interim, because I like interim, whoever is going to be the permanent superintendent, I would ask that my and me would never do some of the things that have occurred. If you need the citizens to know, do a written something to our citizens. But verbal abuse is not acceptable for anyone, not one of my colleagues up here, nor myself. And certainly, it's not just with the person who sits here, it's the people who sit there and the people who sit beyond that attorney. They are all employed with the Alachua County School Board. And you would be surprised at how they feel, who work tirelessly every single day. Look at how things are taken and put out for the community to hear based on their positions. I'm afraid, I'm so afraid that we are going to lose the people who sit beyond Attorney David Delaney, and the people who sit in front of Attorney Spillets, and I may have messed up your name, but those 3 as well. You don't know what it takes to sit up on this dais. Yes, we were elected, so we're here. And I will say this on the 19th, for those of you who come back, thank you for giving me the opportunity to 2026. Do you realize that there are 3 board members who may not be still sitting here with us at that point, because that's when they are seeking or may seek reelection? So there will be many changes on this dais, this very seat that we are sitting in. And it all depends on your passion, what you expect, and what you want that's best for the students of the Alachua County Public Schools. I know I sleep and eat Alachua County Public Schools, and sometimes my family says to me, when you're gonna stop thinking about what's going on? It's very difficult, folk, because that's why I want to be here fighting. And not just for the children, but I was a teacher. I have a son that's a teacher. So I know what it is when you get no money and no acceptable raises. I can't talk about that because that's executive session talk. But just know that I totally support our students, the community, the citizens, our teachers, and non-education professionals who work every day in this school system. It's not just about the superintendent. It's about all of us who come to the different places, 46 schools I think we have now, and sites, and all of the children, the 28,000 children that come each and every day. I reserve the right, Chairman McGraw,
Yes.
to ask that we do consider still trying to get the interim acting superintendent in place before the 15th, unless the 5 of us are going to encourage that individual to stay on board. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Certain.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we table this decision until the, after the new board members comes on.
Second.
Okay, you heard the motion. Agree to table it till the new person comes on. Here, take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. All right, so you, Ms. Abbott gave, with nominations, Ms. Abbott gave a name. You don't have a name. I thought you said you had a name.
My persons, unless you would allow me to ask them again, all of my persons regretfully said they were honored to be considered, but at this point in time, no. I had one person, I will put his name out there because he's not with our district, but I did contact Dr. Jim Surrency from Gilchrist.
Okay. All right, and the other option is, I gave 2 names, Ms. Abbott gave 2 names, but the other thing is, Mr. Delaney, when do you return? Are you available November 1st? We may have to have another special meeting to consider, to be able to talk to, I heard the community talked about the deputy superintendent, but that person would have to agree to do it, and then so that we can finalize, and that gives people more time.
Yes, ma'am, I'm available.
I'm just giving another, available November 1st, okay?
Ms. McGraw, the
Yes.
deputy superintendent's job description says that she will serve as acting, so that's part of her job.
Okay, well, when I came on the board back when Ms. Ms. Jones was, we didn't do that. That's what I'm saying. We skip and we don't follow rules when we're supposed to.
Donna acted as interim, she acted.
Not the first time.
Yes, she did.
Do you remember, do you recall?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
When we went straight into, I thought, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I thought we went straight to Dr. Simon.
So I can hear you.
About the interim. Interim is really not a term, is what we were told when we first came on, I know back in 2020. And when Donna Jones, when Ms. Jones was here, we did not select her as the interim.
We didn't select.
We didn't.
She served until the contract of the interim was adopted.
It wasn't much because I terminated, I made the motion, I remember December 1st for Ms. Clark, if I remember. I'm saying it's the same thing. I don't want us to pick and choose. But what I'm saying is now, I want to hear from the attorney side about the acting that's in her. To me, I don't want her to feel like she's being forced to do something.
Well, the situation currently is that Shane Andrew is the superintendent of this district until November 15th. Absence of Mr. Andrew being available to fulfill those duties, our policies and job descriptions reflect that whoever's deputy superintendent can serve as acting superintendent to sign contracts or to fulfill the duties of the superintendent until another person is installed to act as the superintendent of the district by a vote of the board. That person may be, they will be the legal, by statute, the superintendent of the district. They may have a contract that reflects an understanding that they will only be serving in that role for a limited time frame, and that's frequently called an interim superintendent. Or they may be selected to be the permanent superintendent of the district, but that would be up to the board.
So I have a question. So if Dr. Atria is the interim superintendent, if we choose that, then what guarantee do we have that 2 months from now they might put another interim superintendent? It may come back to the board for another interim superintendent. Does she have some sort of contract that says, yes, I'm going to fill in as interim superintendent until we've done a national search and another superintendent is selected? Or is it just because by whatever the statute is, she can serve while there's not one, but then at any point in 2 months or 3 months while we're doing the national search, it could come before the board that we're going to replace with another interim? So what guarantee is that if she would, if we decided that we were going to follow with Dr. Atria, what guarantee is it that she would remain in that position until we had a permanent superintendent?
Right.
I'm going to echo, I think, some of the comments that Ms. Messina made to some board members. The best guarantee is a consensus from the board and confidence in whoever is taking the position that they have the support of all of the board members or more than a bare majority of the board members. That's the best guarantee that someone can have in that situation. Any responsible contract that would be presented to somebody to serve as interim superintendent is going to need to have provisions for termination of that contract before the end of the term. For instance, if there was some sort of misconduct in office, there would need to be provisions where the board could act to terminate the contract early.
And there's been a lot of discussion tonight about whoever serves as interim should take their name out of the hat for being permanent superintendent. And so, how was that worked out? Because that's not anything we voted on, but I don't want it understood that if Dr. Atria were to take that position, that she automatically is unable to apply for, I don't know why she'd want to, but if she's unable to apply for the permanent job.
That could be a term of the contract that the board would vote on, and it could either be in there or not in there based on the will of the board.
Okay. What she negotiates. Go ahead.
Thank you, Attorney Delaney. When we had, before we went with Superintendent Clark, I remember that we did a search. 20
could have been a little bit more than 25,000, but we went with FSBA, we did the search, and then we hired the person from within. And I would hope that we would not do that again. If we are truly going to do a national search and go with Florida School Board Association again, that we not put up that kind of money and then hire within. So that's kind of like what colleague Abbott is saying about Dr. Atria, I think.
No, I guess what I'm saying is I don't think being interim should necessarily mean that she can't apply for the job if she decided she wanted to.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah.
I hear you. I hear you. And going back to what you said, Attorney Delaney, as far as giving a concrete lock-in contract like what Andrea Massini suggested today, and I heard what other things could come up, then I would feel that we would deal with that at that time. If those instances did occur, then we would certainly act on those. But I would not want that to be a stipulation that we could not have a person to come in and have that ironclad contract unless you know something that I don't know.
Well, the other thing is I want to hear, because people are sitting right here, and I respect people's professional career. Dr. Atria is sitting here. She was on my list and did not want to be in that role before. I understand, then that's why I used the word force. So I want to hear Mr. Spilius. I mean, you're sitting here. I have to sleep at night. I don't want to feel like I'm talking over you, because even though she's in that role, people are still concerned about the way this board has behaved. This board, I don't want somebody's professional career destroyed. I wouldn't want that to happen to my family member. That's where I am.
Madam Chair, could we take a recess for about 10 minutes?
Yes, I understand. I understand. We're going to take 10 minutes and we'll come back. Thank you. All right, we're ready to resume our meeting. See a couple of lights, Ms. Certain. Here's your light on.
I did, thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to circle back to a couple things. So when the previous superintendent before before Mr. Andrew was terminated, I went back and found the minutes, and there, Ms. Jones was acting super, she was appointed, said that she would act as the deputy until we met, and a new person, interim, was appointed March 15th, and I can read that if you want. It's the March 1st, 2022 meeting minutes. It's in there, and that was the same course that happened in December of 2020. So I want to say that. And then Dr. McNeely, you mentioned, and I want to get past this thing about about the searching, and there appears to not be, where it doesn't appear it would be a good search or a search that's transparent. When the search was done, the last one that was done, I'm not sure if you recall me saying this several times, is I was going into a Gainesville for All meeting, or exiting out of a Gainesville for All meeting, and we were told that Ms. Clark was going to be the superintendent, and the search had never started yet by Sue Legg. So it was like we just went through the motions. It was, but we were told that coming outside of a Gainesville for All meeting. So any search that that I'm a part of, I don't have a person that's already picked out. I don't have a person, and I want to do a search for, and we find a replacement. I also contacted some colleagues from around the state who have had outside interim superintendents. I've seen 3 contracts, which I shared with Attorney Delaney. I sent them to him, but Broward, when they had their outside interim, they had a clause in where the person could not apply. Hernando and I want to say Manatee, they didn't have that clause in, so that you can have whatever it is that you want, and the board would agree with the consensus. But I feel that before we appoint anyone to interim, which would be a long-term, that means the person has to be able to work with the new board that'll be constituted. I think we all should see their resumes and things of that nature. I don't think a decision needs to be made tonight on that. We have the motion that was made and approved in the October 15th meeting was the Superintendent Andrew would be on staff until the 15th. It would just be a couple days or maybe a couple weeks after he departs, that the deputy superintendent would be acting as the superintendent, which is within the scope of her work now and the job description that she has, and the new board can decide on a course of action. That's what I recommend we do. And I think we build consensus as a board, and we come and we sit down, and the person who is going to function at an interim role, be they internal or someone from the outside, all of us need to see a resume, and I think it would be good if we all sit and we decide the type of person that we want to try to, what we're expecting of the person, and have some consensus on that as a board, because moving forward, we have got to try to be unified and work on one accord, because we're not going to improve and impact student achievement in a positive manner if we remain highly fragmented. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mrs. Certain, so,
Wait.
I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Dr. McNeely.
Mrs. Certain, I remember the situation with Mrs. Clark. We still paid, whether she was it or when we came out of Gainesville for All and we stated that's who's going to be the superintendent, or the citizens who said it. We still paid a big sum of money for the search and then went on and selected her. I remember that.
I'm not disagreeing with you that there was a cost to it, but I'm trying to say that die was cast. I don't think that's not my intention, that I have someone already picked out that I would want to do a search. So I think we have to do a search. And I'm not against anyone's name. I'm not trying to speak disparagingly, but to do this job, it's a complex job, and for folks to be successful, I think to successful, they've got to work and work with a board, and then they have to work with the staff, their intermediary, and as Ms. Abbott says, I agree with her, it's a special skill set, and it's a lot of skills that you have to have. And I think tonight, the name that was thrown out, I can't support that person because I don't feel that she has the skill set to be able to do the work. That's just my opinion now. So I think that we should table this and we let the deputy work as in the acting position until the new board comes and we sit down and we can have some talk and we can plot a path forward. So.
All right, Dr. Rockwood.
I concur with Ms. Certain, but we voted and that was not the vote. So moving forward, I just wanted to bring up, there were 3 names brought forward. One of them, I have concern because she retired from the district. Mrs. Wakely, I have nothing negative to say about her, and I don't want her to jeopardize her retirement. And I was wondering if either of the attorneys knew if accepting a position back with the district would jeopardize her benefits.
Board Member Rockwell, that would be something, the Florida retirement system and the pension and all that, there is a provision in there where you have to, once you claim retirement, you have to be retired for, I don't know if it's a year, I don't remember if it's a year or 6 months before you come back. And if you do come back prior to that and gain a salary, or I even think reimbursement mileage, it used to be, because I do recall a situation where an individual was working sort of in a volunteer capacity or as like a board member, some type of committee member, and they got mileage reimbursement for that, not paid, and I believe their retirement was jeopardized to the tune of a couple $100,000. So if this individual you're speaking of, and I missed her name, a little hard of hearing sometimes, has conveyed to you a date certain by which she cannot come back until after that date, that I'm sure she knows that to a T in terms of what the law is. But without the statute in front of me, I couldn't answer your inquiry with certainty, but I believe that she is probably well understanding of what her position is, and so as not to jeopardize her retirement.
Okay, because I would want to be sure of that before we move forward, because I would hate for us to consider or not consider her based on information we don't have. My other concern, again, I have nothing negative to say about Mrs. Neal, but her job as our state FTE reporting is absolutely critical. If that is not done correctly, we lose money. And it's not just state money, it can be federal money, like our Title I funds, our ESE funds. So that makes me very nervous. I have the utmost respect for you. I just don't know who could do your job. That it just makes me very nervous. So I want you to know that is my concern, not anything about you.
And Dr. Rockwell, I did say to Ms. Wakely, even though, because like I said, after I went through 13 names, she said yes, but I told her you need to make sure you look at your retirement and what's best for you. And then from a professional standpoint, I gave the name of Dr. Rouse because of the work that he did with our transportation, but also talking to other where he came from. People liked his work, and I think that because he had some experience in our district and our staff is still familiar with him, that he would come in as an interim and do an amazing job and was willing to come back from Texas. And so that is why absolutely he said, and then, but he may also want to apply. I don't know, and I don't think we should hold it, but he did do an excellent job, and that's why I recommended him. Along with, there was another gentleman, Scott Snyder, that was out of Jacksonville. I do have his resume. He was number 2 pick for Volusia County, And also, he had applied in Duval County, and he was an excellent choice from when I spoke to about 4 or 5 people there. But when they decided they had too small of a pool, they put it back out. But he did not apply, but he was enthusiastic about also wanting to come, but also wanted to be able to apply for the permanent position, but had a very impressive resume that I can share as well. And so at this time, we have several names, and I too appreciate everything that Ms. Neal does, but I'm not in agreement with the role of interim superintendent. And so at this time, since that motion did fail, we did want to move forward. We could do another special meeting on November 1st to have some more discussion. That way, Ms. Wakely, and also I think to be fair to our deputy superintendent, to give her time to digest and look at things, but because I want to respect everybody that's in the room for you to be able to consider that and just have another special meeting. That's a suggestion. And then after that, it's November 1st.
You're saying we table this until November 1st?
Well, yeah, well, I think she needs to be able to look at, because like I said, I wanted her to be able, even though she's in that role now as deputy superintendent, I didn't want to make her feel like she was, people couldn't, my understanding is when talking to the attorney earlier and talking to FSBA, she could, for personal reasons, not want to move into that role, but also to give time to digest that, but also to look at, like I said, I have the name of Snyder, I mentioned one's Wakely, and to allow people to talk to Dr. Riles, because Dr. Riles, and that gives us time, and then we come back November 1st to try to make some type of, to finalize. Ms. Abbott.
Well, yeah, I'm not happy with either of your names either, so. I mean, and it's just because Dr. Riles is gone, he's not going to want to come back and leave a job teaching at Texas A&M for an interim position and then go back. And so, I mean, Dr. Atria, have you thought about this?
I'm waiting for permission to speak.
Huh?
Can I, Madam Chair, is it all right if I respond?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes, Ms. Abbott, I have thought about it. I think where I struggle a little bit is the differences between what I read in policy and what I read in my job description. So my job description talks about standing as superintendent on behalf of the superintendent when he or she is absent. So that's different than taking over for the role of the superintendent. Essentially, like a day like today when the superintendent is not here, then I act on his behalf. If he's on vacation, if he's at a conference, et cetera, can't be reached, I act on his behalf. And then policy talks about acting superintendent when the superintendent has been deemed incapacitated and unable to serve, and I don't know that that's where we're at. So I think I just need a little more time to talk with General Counsel and find out what those specifics would mean.
That's all I was saying. I was just trying to be fair to everybody that was involved with the said names that have come up. So, yes. Dr. Rockwell, yes.
I move that we table this until a special meeting in November.
Okay.
Second.
All right, well, November, you don't want a specific time.
I didn't give a specific date because we didn't all have a chance to look at our calendars, and I don't want to give us a date and then have someone important not be available, like our attorney.
I'm available all day on the 1st.
Okay, he's available all day on the 1st. Are y'all available on the 1st? Dr. McNeely, can you look at your 1st?
Well, that's a Friday, so you're talking about morning or evening?
Morning, the 4th? Can we do the 4th? Okay. Are y'all available on the 4th?
I'm available before noon or after 3.
Okay. So after 3,
I have Children's Trust at 4.
okay, so it'll be during the day?
Probably be at 6 o'clock or so, 6:30.
Okay.
I don't,
So 6 o'clock or 6:30, Ms. Certain?
why don't we say 6:30 because I don't.
Have Children's Trust? Okay. 6:30 on the 4th. Can you amend your motion to add that date, Dr. Rockwell?
Yes, I move that we table this for a special meeting to be held at 6:30 on November 4th.
Okay. All right. So it's 6:30. All right. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none?
Did it get a second?
I thought, oh, I'm sorry, who's second? Is there a second?
And
Okay, Ms. Abbott. It's been moved and properly second. Okay. Is there any other discussion?
input citizen.
Any citizen input? Any citizen input? Ms. Abbott? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, so at this time, we will have our special meeting on November 4th at 6:30 to continue this conversation. This meeting is adjourned at 8:02.